Friday night sound session with John Moore and DJ Hyphen on KUBE 93.
As we mentioned before, you've been in the game for a minute and released a ton of dope material over the years.
Thank you.
You also just put out a brand new mixtape, limited time only.
Yeah.
People can go download that on www.imnotforsale.com.
Mm-hmm.
On the intro tape, you summed up your career pretty nicely, but for those who haven't heard yet, can you bring them up to speed a little bit and just give them the condensed version of, from then to now?
You know what? I'll start with the. It's gonna sound weird, but thank you for the riots in LA. Thank you very much, because I think it was like all that Rodney King crazy stuff and blah blah
92.
blah. Yeah, that wave actually made it up all the way to Toronto. You know what I'm saying? Because I guess just the young black youth in general, we were just disgruntled. We were dissatisfied. We were disappointed, and we felt that, you know what I'm saying, even up in Toronto, like we just felt a ways for the whole situation, period. So I remember, there were riots on Yonge Street. Yonge Street is actually the longest street in the world, and that's in Toronto. And I remember there were riots on Yonge Street. They broke into all the jewelry stores, all the crazy joints, you know what I'm saying? And they had a little riot themselves. And I remember that the government wasn't going for it up in Canada. But instead of, like where you guys would have sent in the troops and had military lockdown for all the kids and stuff, what they did was they implemented a program that was called the JOY program, and that's Jobs for Ontario's Youth. So what it actually did was it took a lot of kids off the street, and because the whole point of it is like they won't hire a kid if he doesn't have a lot of jobs on his resume, but you can't build up your resume if you don't hire a kid. So what Jobs for Ontario's Youth, what the JOY program did was it allowed for employers to get free labor. So the government was the ones that were paying us, and you'd work at whatever job. And there's a point for me telling you this. We worked for the Toronto Arts Council, and there was a thing that was called Fresh Arts. And Fresh Arts, it had the theater department, music department, visual arts, all kind of crazy stuff. And what was born out of Fresh Arts was Socrates, was Kardinal, was Little X, was a lot of very influential Canadian artists. And back in those days, like, they helped groom us to, to have a independent mentality, you know what I'm saying? To not depend necessarily on the labels, but to do things for ourselves. And just with that mentality, that's how Socrates first got his first deal, you know what I'm saying, back in the days. Like, we put out independent music, and then he got signed to Warner back in, like, 95, you know what I'm saying? Like, we were still in high school and all that good stuff. And, once one of us got a little bit of bread, spread it to the next dude, I was able to do some stuff, and that's how we did it. Our clique was actually called The Circle because we didn't really move too tough outside of our circle of people. And within that circle, there was at the end of the day, there was about 5 of us that got major recording deals. You know what I mean? But, Socrates, he first came on with Father Time, and then, Shaw Claire, when he got his deal, he actually had an American release through Priority, and I produced his first single that was Let's Ride. And then, later on, I went on to get my deal with MCA and stuff like that. I mean, that's the condensed version. Yeah. But all of that was really just born out of, just some real rebellion and aggression from when we were younger. And then, basically they just taught us how to channel our energy into the music. And, to think like how the Panthers used to think like how a lot of people used to think, to where you operate within yourself, but you use all the resources you have to, bring everybody up and spread it to the world.
So is that same type of mentorship philosophy kind of like reoccurring and taking place now with like Akon and yourself?
In a way.
Not so much in an artistic sense, you know what I mean, but just in terms of like maybe his station, his position within the industry, and his ability to probably open a few doors and things of that nature.
I mean, I think the difference is back then, the people that mentored us were doing it consciously. Akon is not really thinking, let me mentor Kardinal or let me show him the ropes. It's just how he is. So it's kind of just a little byproduct of what he regularly does. You know what I'm saying? Like, the one thing about Con that's so cool is anytime you're in studio, you're bound to learn something. You know what I'm saying? Because you're dealing with anybody from Michael Jackson to Lionel Richie to Glasses Malone to Young Jeezy to 3 6 Mafia. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like there's a window into so many different artists. There's a window into so many different ways of doing business, into so many ways of looking at getting a publishing check, getting this check, that check. And it's not just about the money. It's also learning, how to work with people. You know what I mean? So I definitely learned a lot from Con, just being in the mix.
No doubt. Well, you're about to drop your 4th studio album, Not For Sale. Are we still looking at September 9th for the release date? I think that's the last I heard.
All day.
All right, so that's what we're doing.
Day. I don't want to have to go set fire to the Interscope.
That's a good day. That's my mom's birthday.
Is it?
Oh, there you go. See, that's a good song.
Happy birthday to your mom.
That's a good one. How did you
thing.
approach this project differently from your past work, and how is that kind of reflected in the development of this album?
I actually had money in my pocket this time. You know what I'm saying? Pardon me. That's probably the biggest difference is that we weren't starving.
No doubt.
And you know what? I'll tell you honestly, it's not always a good thing, because it's funny. I was talking with Con and just the other day about certain people's material will leave the certain people out, but he was saying, sometimes like when people are in jail or when people are suffering, sometimes that's when you get the best material. You know what I mean? And it's like, for me, honestly, there's definitely been points in my life where we had absolutely nothing else except for the music. You know what I'm saying? Really and truly, there's been some music that's been made out of magic, because really we didn't even have enough money for bus fare to get to the studio. There'd be times that I was so ass out that I'd literally have to wait for one of my homeboys to come pick me up to bring me to studio. So when you have that kind of passion in there that you're like, yo, this is a do or die, like literally, because I'm not, you know what I'm saying, and I'm not passing judgment on anybody, but I'm not that dude that's gonna go, you know what I'm saying, outside of my house and start pushing rocks in front of my house, or, you know what I'm saying, start doing certain things, because that's, for me, that's just not how my family raised me. Sorry, they kind of raised me. We definitely suffer before dishonoring our family. You know what I'm saying? So for me, certain things where people are like, I had no choice. I had to do this. The system made me do this. Or, I had to feed my family and all that kind of stuff. Our family, we just didn't believe in that growing up. You know what I'm saying? And rather than do certain things, we definitely let that macaroni and cheese stretch. You know what I'm saying? Or we let that the not even the lean ground beef. We let the cheapest ground beef. We let that stretch and be mad creative with that. You know what I'm saying? So that's really that's my struggle coming up, is trying to do all this stuff while still trying to be a decent dude. You know what I mean? In hip hop, sometimes they call it being a square, but I actually believe that there's a lot more people like me than there is.
Oh, definitely.
Than there is those other people that.
But it's funny too, because that's when you look at it kind of in a philosophical and a principle way. That's almost what the spirit of hip hop really truly comes from. You know what I'm saying? It's making the most out of the least.
Most definitely.
Because one time I had to explain to my grandma, or my great grandma, what hip hop was, and that was the hardest thing. And I told her. And it was a weird analogy, but I said it's like collard greens, or it's like chitlins. You know what I mean? It's like taking something that somebody else threw away and making something out of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then you make a tradition and you make a custom, and that's what it is. And
that's really what it is, because it's the same way. Like if you look at it that way too, it's like going into some bougie ass fancy restaurant and they serving collard greens and chitlins in there, but like with a splash of syrup imported from France, or you know what I mean, some salts that you can only find in the hills of Hawaii. You know what I mean? It might be collard greens, but it ain't the collard greens. You know what I mean? It's not what you
finest in appropriation.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're good at, man. That's what I'm good at. Yeah, that's what people are good at.